I found them while changing the sheets, a mundane Saturday morning chore I'd done 1,000 times. My hand brushed against something silky, and I pulled out a pair of black lace underwear that definitely weren't mine. Size small. I was a medium. My heart stopped for a moment, then started racing. I stood there in our bedroom, the offensive garment dangling from my fingers, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. David? My voice came out smaller than I intended. My husband looked up from his laptop at the kitchen table, coffee mug halfway to his lips. Yeah, babe? I walked out to the kitchen, holding up the panties. Can you explain these? He squinted at them, then his face broke into an easy smile. Not guilty, not nervous, just amused. Where did you find those? In our bed. Huh. He set down his coffee and stood, walking over to examine them more closely. Those are probably Claire's. Remember when she stayed over after the engagement party? She crashed in our bed because the guest room was occupied by your mom. Claire. My sister. The explanation hit me like cold water. Claire wore these and just left them in our bed? Must have packed in a hurry the next morning. He shrugged, completely unbothered. You know how scattered she gets. I'm surprised we didn't find them sooner, actually. That was what, 3 weeks ago? It had been 3 weeks. Claire had indeed stayed over after her engagement party, too drunk to drive home. David had gallantly offered our bedroom since my mother was in the guest room and my father had the couch. The explanation made sense. It was reasonable, logical. So why did my stomach still feel like it was full of lead? I'll text her, David said, pulling out his phone. Tell her we found her underwear. She'll be mortified. He was already typing, a grin on his face at his younger sister-in-law's expense. I looked at the panties again. Expensive. Lacy. The kind of thing you wore for someone special, not the practical cotton you slept in. Okay, I said slowly. I'll just throw them in the wash. Good idea. David kissed my forehead absently, already returning to his laptop. Though maybe put them in a separate bag or something. Claire's probably going to want them back. They look expensive. I stood there for another moment, holding my sister's underwear, watching my husband settle back into his work like nothing had happened. Like this was completely normal. Maybe it was. Maybe I was being paranoid. I put the panties in a Ziploc bag and set them aside to return to Claire. Then I went back to changing the sheets, but the uneasy feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. Chapter 2. The Innocent Ones. Claire came by that afternoon to pick up the panties. I'd texted her after David's suggestion, and she'd responded immediately. OMG, so embarrassing. Be there in 20. She arrived wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, her long dark hair perfect despite the wind outside. My baby sister had always been the pretty one, the charming one, the one people gravitated toward at parties. I am so sorry, she said when I handed her the bag, her cheeks pink. I was so hungover that morning. I barely remember packing. I can't believe I left those behind. It's fine, I said, watching her face carefully. Though I have to ask, why were you wearing those to sleep in? They don't exactly look comfortable. Claire's blush deepened. Oh, I wasn't sleeping in them. I mean, I was wearing them earlier in the evening, at the party. I changed into pajamas at some point, but I guess I tossed them on the bed and they got tangled in the sheets when I was sleeping. Another reasonable explanation. Makes sense, I said, though something still felt off. Honestly, I'm just glad it was you who found them and not David. Claire laughed. How awkward would that have been? He did see them. He's the one who figured out they were probably yours. Oh, a flicker of something crossed her face, too quick to identify. Well, that's still less embarrassing than him finding them alone or something. At least you were there to mediate. We stood in the doorway for a moment, an awkward silence stretching between us. So, I said finally, how are the wedding plans going? Claire's face lit up. Amazing! Marcus and I just finalized the venue. I know it's only been 3 months since he proposed, but we're thinking a spring wedding. Maybe April or May? She launched into details about flowers and color schemes and guest lists, and I listened with half my attention. My sister was getting married to a man she'd dated for barely a year, and she was radiantly happy. When had I last been radiantly happy? David and I had been married for 5 years. Good years, or so I'd thought. He was an architect, successful and driven. I worked in marketing for a tech company. We had a nice house in a good neighborhood, took occasional vacations, talked about having kids eventually. We were comfortable, stable, content, but radiant? No, not in a long time. You okay? Claire asked, breaking into my thoughts. You seem distracted. Just tired, I lied. Work's been busy. I hear you. Hey, speaking of work, is David around? I wanted to ask him something about Marcus's investment portfolio. David's always so good with financial advice. He's in his office. Go ahead. I watched Claire walk down the hallway toward David's home office, her expensive boots clicking on our hardwood floors. She knocked once and entered without waiting for a response, calling out, "Hey, brother-in-law, got a minute?" I returned to the kitchen and started unloading the dishwasher, but I found myself listening to the murmur of their voices down the hall. Listening for… what? Anything unusual? They were in there for 20 minutes. When Claire emerged, she was smiling. "David's so smart," she said, grabbing her purse. "He gave me some great advice for Marcus. You're lucky to have him." "Yeah," I said automatically. "I am." After she left, I went to David's office. He was back at his laptop, focused on what looked like architectural plans. "What did Claire want?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. Oh, just some questions about her fiancé's investments. Wanted to know if I thought he was being too aggressive with his portfolio." He glanced up at me. "Why?" "No reason. Just curious." He studied me for a moment, his blue eyes sharp. "You seem off today. Everything okay?" "Fine. Just, the panties thing was weird." David sighed and turned his chair to face me fully. "Babe, I know it was surprising to find them, but it really is the most logical explanation. Claire stayed in our bed. Claire is scattered and forgetful. Therefore, Claire left her underwear behind. Simple as that." "I know. Do you? Because you've been acting strange since this morning." "I'm not acting strange. You are." He stood and walked over to me, putting his hands on my shoulders. "Talk to me. What's really bothering you?" How could I explain the unease I felt? The way the explanation was too neat, too convenient. The fact that my sister's underwear had been on my side of the bed, tucked between the sheets like someone had hidden them there. But saying those things out loud would sound insane. Paranoid. "Nothing," I said finally. "You're right. I'm just being weird." He pulled me into a hug, and I let myself relax against him. He smelled like the cologne I'd bought him for Christmas. Familiar and comforting. "I love you," he murmured into my hair. "You know that, right?" "I know." "Good. Now stop worrying about your sister's underwear and come help me decide between these two designs for the Morrison project." I followed him back to his desk, pushing down the unease that still churned in my stomach. He was right. I was being paranoid. The panties were a small thing, an innocent mistake. Nothing to worry about. Chapter 3. The First Crack. 2 weeks later, I stopped by David's office downtown to drop off his laptop charger, which he'd forgotten at home. His assistant, Jessica, greeted me with her usual friendly smile. "He's in a meeting, but it should wrap up soon. Want to wait in his office?" "Sure, thanks." I settled into one of the leather chairs facing his desk, the charger in my lap. His office was immaculate as always. Clean lines, modern furniture, architectural models displayed on sleek shelves. Very David. I glanced at his desk. A few papers were stacked neatly, a coffee mug with the firm's logo, his desktop computer humming quietly, and his phone, face up on the desk. It lit up with a text notification. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have looked. It was an invasion of privacy, a violation of trust. But I looked anyway. The message preview showed on the locked screen. "Claire, can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can we…" The preview cut off there. My heart started pounding. I stared at the phone, waiting to see if it would light up again with the rest of the message, but it went dark. "Can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can we… what?" I heard footsteps in the hallway, David's voice saying goodbye to someone. I quickly looked away from the phone, fixing my gaze on one of the architectural models. "Hey," David said, entering the office with a smile. "Jessica said you were here. Is that my charger? You're a lifesaver." "Yeah, you left it on the kitchen counter." I handed it to him, my voice sounding normal despite my racing heart. "Thanks, babe." He plugged it in and glanced at his phone. I watched his face carefully, but his expression didn't change as he picked it up and checked his notifications. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, fine. Just a text from Claire asking about that investment stuff again. Her fiancé has questions. He typed out a quick response and set the phone back down. Want to grab lunch? I've got an hour before my next meeting. Sure. We went to a cafe around the corner, and David talked about his current project, a mixed-use development that was giving him headaches with the client's constantly changing requirements. I nodded and made appropriate responses, but my mind was elsewhere. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. What had happened yesterday? David had been at work all day. I'd been at work all day. He'd come home at 6:30, we'd had dinner, watched TV, gone to bed. Unless he hadn't been at work all day. Earth to Sarah, David said, waving a hand in front of my face. You completely zoned out. Sorry, what did you say? I asked if you wanted to invite your parents over for dinner this weekend. Oh, sure, that sounds nice. He studied me across the table. You've been distracted a lot lately. Is work stressing you out? Maybe a little. Want to talk about it? I almost laughed. Want to talk about how I found my sister's underwear in our bed, and now I'm seeing suspicious texts from her. Want to talk about how I'm starting to doubt everything about our marriage? It's fine, I said instead. Just the usual deadline pressures. After lunch, I went back to work, but I couldn't focus. I kept seeing that text preview in my mind. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can we? That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I checked our credit card statements. I told myself I was just reviewing our spending, looking for areas where we could cut back. But really, I was looking for evidence of something. Anything unusual. At first, everything looked normal. Groceries, gas, utilities, the usual charges. Then I noticed the cash withdrawals. $500 on the 15th of last month, $300 on the 22nd, $600 on the 3rd of this month, $400 on the 10th. Larger than usual and more frequent. David occasionally withdrew cash for miscellaneous expenses, paying the lawn service, tipping the food delivery person generously, but these amounts seemed excessive. I pulled up statements from the previous 6 months. The pattern held. Regular cash withdrawals, 2 or 3 times a month, always between $300 and $600. In total, over the past 6 months, nearly $15,000 had been withdrawn in cash. I sat back, staring at the screen. $15,000. Where was it going? When David came to bed that night, I was still awake, staring at the ceiling. You okay? He asked, settling in beside me. Can I ask you something? Sure. The cash withdrawals from our account. The larger ones. What are those for? He was quiet for a moment. Just various expenses. Why? It's a lot of cash. Like $15,000 over 6 months. Is it? He sounded unconcerned. I guess I haven't been tracking it that closely. It's probably been going to the house renovations, contractor tips, that sort of thing. We haven't had any renovations. Not major ones, but there's been maintenance. The plumber last month, the electrician the month before. I like to tip well. You know that. It was true. David was a generous tipper. But $500 generous? Okay, I said, because I didn't know what else to say. He rolled over and kissed me goodnight. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into sleep. I lay awake for hours, my mind churning. The panties, the text, the money. Small things, maybe. Explainable things. But together, they were starting to form a pattern I couldn't ignore. Arthur, Chapter 4. Sister Time. I invited Claire to lunch the following week, suggesting a quiet bistro where we could actually talk instead of one of the trendy, noisy places she usually preferred. She arrived 15 minutes late, breathless and apologetic. Sorry. My meeting ran over. No problem, I said, though I'd been sitting there anxiously for the past 20 minutes, rehearsing what I wanted to say. We ordered salads and wine, and Claire immediately launched into wedding details, the photographer she'd booked, the struggle to narrow down the invitation list, her future mother-in-law's opinions on everything. I let her talk, watching her face. She was genuinely excited, genuinely happy. If she was hiding something, she was an incredible actress. How are things with you and David? She asked eventually, spearing a piece of grilled chicken. The question caught me off guard. Fine. Good. Why do you ask? No reason. You just seem a little stressed lately. I wondered if everything was okay. Everything's fine. Claire studied me with those dark eyes we'd both inherited from our mother. You know you can talk to me, right? If something was wrong? The irony of the moment wasn't lost on me. Here I was, suspecting my sister of having an affair with my husband, and she was offering to be my confidant. Actually, I said carefully, I wanted to ask you about something. Okay. The text you sent David last week, about not being able to stop thinking about yesterday and asking when you could. Something. What was that about? Claire's brow furrowed. What text? You texted him last Tuesday. I saw it when I dropped off his charger at his office. Oh, her face cleared. Right. That was about the investment advice he gave me. We'd talked the day before about Marcus's portfolio, and he suggested some specific mutual funds. I was texting to ask when we could set up a meeting with his financial advisor to discuss it further. Another reasonable explanation. That's all it was? I pressed. Yeah, of course. Why? She paused, her eyes widening. Wait, did you think… Sarah, were you worried the text was about something else? No, I just… Oh my God, you were. Claire laughed, but it sounded strained. You thought David and I were… What? Having some kind of inappropriate relationship? When she put it like that, out loud, it sounded absurd. I didn't think that exactly, I said, backtracking. I just saw the text and it seemed kind of… I don't know. Never mind. Forget I said anything. Sarah, Claire reached across the table and grabbed my hand. David loves you. Like, completely and totally loves you. You know that, right? He's always talking about how lucky he is to have you. He talks about me all the time. Whenever he's giving Marcus and me advice about marriage, it's always, Sarah and I do this, or Sarah always says that. You're his world. I felt tears prick at my eyes. What was wrong with me? Why was I manufacturing problems in my marriage? I know, I said quietly. I'm sorry. I've just been in a weird headspace lately. Wedding planning stress by proxy? Claire suggested with a gentle smile. Or work stuff? Probably both. We finished lunch with the conversation shifting to safer topics, but I felt Claire watching me with concern. As we were paying the bill, she said, You know, if you're feeling disconnected from David, maybe you guys should plan a trip or something. Just the two of you. When's the last time you had a proper vacation? She was right. It had been over a year. Our lives had become consumed with work, with routine, with the mundane business of being married. That's a good idea, I said. I'll suggest it to David. Claire hugged me goodbye outside the restaurant. I love you, big sister. Please don't stress yourself out over nothing, okay? I'll try. I watched her walk away, her heels clicking on the pavement, and tried to convince myself that I'd been worrying over nothing. But when I got home and saw David's car in the driveway, he was supposed to be at work until 6, the unease came flooding back. I found him in his office, looking flustered. Hey, he said when I appeared in the doorway. I didn't expect you home so soon. I had lunch with Claire. Why are you home? Forgot some important documents for a client meeting. Had to swing back and grab them. Oh, okay. He gathered some files from his desk and kissed me quickly on his way out. See you tonight. Love you. Love you too. After he left, I stood in his office for a long moment. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I started going through his desk. I'm not sure what I was looking for. Love letters? Evidence of secret meetings? I felt ridiculous even as I was doing it, but I couldn't stop myself. The desk drawers were organized and boring. Office supplies, old business cards, project files. The bottom drawer was locked. I'd never noticed that before. Why would David have a locked drawer in his home office? I searched for the key, checking the usual places, under the desk mat, in the pencil holder, taped to the underside of the drawer above. Nothing. The locked drawer haunted me for the rest of the day. What was in there that needed to be locked? What was David hiding? Chapter 5. The Money Trail. That night after David fell asleep, I got out of bed and went to his office. I felt like a character in a thriller, creeping through my own house in the dark, searching for evidence of my husband's betrayal. The absurdity wasn't lost on me. I tried the locked drawer again, just in case I'd been mistaken earlier. Still locked. On a whim, I checked the small safe David kept in his closet. He'd told me the combination years ago, my birthday, and I'd never had reason to use it. I turned the dial, 0815. The safe didn't open. I tried again, more carefully. Still nothing. He'd changed the combination. Why would he change the combination to the safe and not tell me? I stood there in the dark closet, my heart pounding, feeling simultaneously vindicated and crazy. This was suspicious, wasn't it? Changing the safe combination without mentioning it? Or maybe he'd mentioned it and I'd forgotten. Maybe the new combination was his birthday, or our anniversary, or something equally obvious. I tried a few more combinations. His birthday, our anniversary, the day we met. None of them worked. I gave up and went back to bed, but sleep was impossible. The next morning, I waited until David left for work. Then I called in sick to my own job. I had a different kind of work to do. I started with the bank accounts. We had a joint checking and savings account that we both used regularly. But David also had accounts from before our marriage that he'd kept separate. He'd always been particular about maintaining some financial independence, and I'd never questioned it. I logged into our joint account first, printing out 6 months of statements. Then I tried to access David's personal account. I didn't have the login information. I'd never needed it before. I called the bank, explaining that I needed to access my husband's account for tax purposes. The representative was apologetic but firm. Without David's authorization or a power of attorney, she couldn't help me. Dead end. I turned to the credit card statements instead, going through them line by line, looking for, what? Hotel charges? Jewelry purchases for another woman? What I found was more mundane, but equally suspicious. Recurring charges to a service called Cloud Secure Storage for $29.99 per month, going back 8 months. I'd never heard of Cloud Secure Storage. A quick Google search revealed it was a digital storage service for documents and photos. Why would David need that? We had plenty of storage space on our home computer and in our shared cloud accounts. Unless he was storing something he didn't want me to see. I tried to create an account to see if I could access his storage, but it required his email and password, information I didn't have. Another dead end. By noon, I was frustrated and exhausted. I'd found questions but no answers. Suspicious patterns, but no concrete evidence. I was about to give up when my phone rang. It was my mother. Hi, sweetheart. I wanted to confirm dinner on Saturday. Should I bring anything? Just yourselves, I said automatically. Then, hey, Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Did Dad ever, in your marriage, did you ever feel like something was off but you couldn't quite put your finger on what? There was a pause. What's going on, Sarah? Nothing specific. I'm just, I don't know, feeling unsettled. About David? I hesitated. My mother adored David. They all did. My parents, my sister, even my extended family. He was charming and successful and treated me well. How could I explain my vague suspicions without sounding paranoid? I found Claire's underwear in our bed a few weeks ago, I said finally. And David's been acting a little strange. And there's money missing and locked drawers and I feel like I'm going crazy. Whoa, slow down. My mother's voice was calm, soothing. Claire's underwear? From when she stayed over? Yeah, and what do you mean money missing? I explained about the cash withdrawals, the changed safe combination, the mysterious cloud-secure charges. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Sarah, I know this might not be what you want to hear, but have you considered that you might be looking for problems that aren't there? What do you mean? Well, Claire's underwear has an innocent explanation. The cash withdrawals could be exactly what David said. Tips, miscellaneous expenses. The safe combination might have been changed for security reasons. The cloud storage could be for work documents. Sometimes when we're stressed or anxious, we start seeing patterns that aren't really there. It was the same thing everyone had been telling me. The same thing I'd been telling myself. You're probably right, I said. But, my mother continued, if you're really worried, the best thing to do is talk to David. Tell him how you're feeling. Communication is everything in marriage. After we hung up, I sat on the couch staring at nothing. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was inventing problems. Maybe the stress of work and Claire's wedding and the pressure of our unfulfilled plans for children had pushed me into some kind of paranoid spiral. Or maybe my gut was trying to tell me something. That night, David came home with flowers. A beautiful bouquet of peonies, my favorite. What's this for? I asked, surprised. No reason, just saw them and thought of you. He kissed me, and for a moment, everything felt normal. Right. Thank you. They're beautiful. I was thinking, he said as I arranged the flowers in a vase. Maybe we should plan that vacation Claire mentioned. Get away for a week, just the two of us. What do you think? I think that sounds wonderful. He came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. I love you, Sarah. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. You're everything to me. I leaned back against him, wanting desperately to believe it, but the flowers felt like a distraction. The sudden affection felt like manipulation. Or maybe I was just too far gone to accept genuine gestures anymore. Chapter 6. Digital Footprints. I couldn't let it go. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I checked David's pockets before doing laundry. I looked through his briefcase when he left it by the door. I even tried to guess his phone password when he was in the shower, though the biometric lock defeated me after 3 attempts. I found nothing incriminating, just the ordinary detritus of a busy professional's life. Receipts, business cards, notes about clients and projects. But I did notice something interesting. David had started keeping his phone on him at all times. Even in the shower, it sat on the bathroom counter where he could see it. At night, he kept it on his nightstand instead of downstairs in his office as he used to. It was a small change, but it felt significant. On Wednesday evening, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when Claire called. "Hey, can I ask you something?" she said without preamble. "Sure. Has David mentioned anything about helping Marcus and me with our wedding expenses?" I froze, knife suspended over the vegetables I was chopping. "What?" "Marcus just told me that David offered to contribute to the wedding. Like, a substantial amount. I told Marcus he must have misunderstood, but he swears that's what David said. David didn't mention anything to me about that. That's what I thought. It would be incredibly generous, but it seems like something he'd discuss with you first, right?" "Right." After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen, my mind racing. David had offered to pay for part of Claire's wedding? With whose money? We didn't have tens of thousands of dollars just lying around to contribute to someone else's wedding, even my sister's. When David got home, I asked him about it directly. He looked surprised. "Did Claire call you?" "Yes. She said Marcus mentioned you offered to help with wedding expenses." "Oh, that." He set down his briefcase and loosened his tie. "I told Marcus I'd cover the photography as our wedding gift to them. It's not a huge amount, a few $1,000s. I was going to surprise you with it closer to the wedding." "A few $1,000s is a lot of money, David. We can afford it." "Can we?" "Because I've been looking at our accounts, and between the cash withdrawals and our regular expenses, we're not exactly flush with extra cash." His expression shifted, becoming cooler. "Looking at our accounts? Why?" "Because I'm your wife. Because we share those accounts. Because I have a right to know where our money is going." "Of course you do." His tone was measured, careful. "I just mean, what prompted this sudden audit of our finances? The $15,000 in cash withdrawals over the past 6 months. That's what prompted it." He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Sarah, I told you what that was for. Tips for contractors we haven't hired? Miscellaneous expenses you can't specify? That's not an explanation, David. That's a dodge." We stared at each other across the kitchen. The tension was thick enough to cut. "I don't like what you're implying," he said finally. "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. Where is the money going?" "Various places. Work expenses, gifts, personal purchases. I don't track every single dollar, Sarah. We're not broke. Why does it matter?" "It matters because it's our money. Because financial transparency is part of marriage. Because you don't trust me," he finished. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? You don't trust me." "Should I?" The question hung in the air between us. David's jaw tightened. "I can't believe we're having this conversation. After 5 years of marriage, you're suddenly acting like I'm some kind of criminal hiding money from you. You changed the combination to the safe without telling me." His eyes widened slightly. "You went through the safe?" "I tried to. It didn't open." "Unbelievable." He shook his head. "So you've been snooping through my things? Going through my desk? My safe? Our accounts? What's next, Sarah? Are you going to hire a private investigator to follow me?" The suggestion hung in the air, and I realized with a start that it wasn't actually a bad idea. "Maybe I should," I said quietly. David stared at me for a long moment. Then he grabbed his keys from the counter. "I'm going for a drive. I need to clear my head." "David!" But he was already gone, the door slamming behind him. I stood alone in the kitchen, vegetables forgotten, wondering how we'd gotten here. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Did you talk to David? Is everything okay with the wedding gift thing?" I typed back, "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. David didn't come home until after midnight. I pretended to be asleep when he slipped into bed beside me. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee, kissed me goodbye, went to work. But something had shifted between us. A line had been crossed. That afternoon, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called a private investigator. The woman on the phone was professional and discreet. "What specifically are you hoping to find out?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. I think my husband might be hiding something. Money, maybe. Or something else. Do you suspect infidelity?" Did I? The panties, the texts, the secretiveness, it all pointed in that direction. But I still couldn't quite believe it. "Maybe," I said finally. "I can help you," she said. "But I need to be clear about something up front. You might not like what I find. A lot of people hire me hoping I'll prove their suspicions wrong, but if there's something to find, I'll find it. Are you prepared for that?" Was I? Was I ready to know the truth, whatever it was? "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." We scheduled a meeting for the following week. The retainer fee was steep, $3,000, but I paid it from my personal savings account, the one David didn't have access to. If I was going to uncover the truth, I needed to do it without him knowing. Chapter 7. The Investigator. Her name was Monica Chen, and she met me at a coffee shop across town, somewhere I knew David would never go, a small place in a neighborhood he considered too industrial, near the old warehouses that were being converted into loft apartments. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe in her early 30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Nothing about her screamed, "Private investigator," which I supposed was the point. "Tell me everything," she said after we'd ordered our drinks. Black coffee for both of us. "Start from the beginning. And I mean the very beginning. Sometimes the important details are the ones people think are too small to matter." So I did. I started with the panties, describing exactly where I'd found them, what they looked like, how David had reacted. Then the texts, reading them out verbatim from the screenshots I'd saved. The money, every withdrawal, every mysterious charge, the locked drawer and changed safe combination, the cloud-secure charges that went nowhere, David's sudden protectiveness of his phone, keeping it close even in the shower, my sister's wedding gift that I'd known nothing about until Marcus mentioned it to Claire. Monica took detailed notes on a tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. She asked occasional questions. What time of day were the cash withdrawals usually made? Had your sister stayed overnight before the engagement party? Does your husband travel for work? But mostly, she just listened with an intensity that made me feel like every word mattered. When I finished, she sat back and studied me with those sharp eyes. "Before we proceed, I need to ask, what outcome are you hoping for?" "The truth." "No. I mean, what will you do with whatever I find? If your husband is having an affair, will you leave him? If the money is going to something innocent, will you be satisfied? You need to know what you're looking for before we start digging, because once we start, there's no putting the information back. You can't unknow what we discover." I hadn't thought that far ahead. I'd been so focused on finding answers that I hadn't considered what I'd do with them. The question forced me to confront something I'd been avoiding. What did I want? Did I want to save my marriage? Did I want to catch David in a lie? Did I want to be proven wrong? To discover that all my suspicions were just paranoia? I guess. "I need to know if I can trust my husband," I said finally. "If the answer is no, if he's lying to me, if he's betraying me, then I'll figure out what to do from there. But I need to know the truth first, whatever it is." Monica nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Just be prepared. In my experience, when people hire me, they usually already know the truth on some level. They just need proof to act on it. The gut knows before the brain catches up." "And your gut? What does it tell you about my situation?" She tapped her pen against her tablet. "Honestly, the panties could be innocent. The texts could be innocent. Even the money taken individually could have innocent explanations. But all of it together? That's a pattern. And patterns don't lie. So you think he's cheating? I think there's enough smoke here to warrant looking for fire. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll run a comprehensive background check on your husband. Financial records, property records, business filings, criminal history, everything. I have access to databases that will show me things you couldn't find on your own. I'll also conduct surveillance over the next 2 weeks, tracking his movements, documenting where he goes and who he meets with. I'll take photographs, video when possible, and detailed notes about his activities. Will he know he's being followed? Not if I'm doing my job right. She smiled slightly. I'm very good at my job, Sarah. I've been doing this for 8 years, and I've never been made. I know how to stay invisible. And what about my sister? Should you be following her too? That's up to you. It doubles the cost, but it might give us a fuller picture of what's happening. I thought about my budget, about the $3,000 I'd already committed. But then I thought about the $15,000 in cash withdrawals, about the money David was spending on God knows what. Yes, I said. Follow both of them. I need to know everything. We discussed logistics, where David worked, his typical schedule, his known associates. I gave her recent photos from my phone, including some of Claire. Your sister, Monica said, studying Claire's photo. You think she might be involved? I don't know. I don't want to think so, but the evidence points in that direction. Maybe. Monica's expression softened slightly. This is the hard part, Sarah. The waiting. The not knowing. Once I start digging, you're going to be on edge constantly, analyzing every interaction with your husband, looking for signs. It's going to be exhausting. I'm already exhausted. I know. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. Over the next 2 weeks, I existed in a state of constant anxiety. Every time David's phone rang, I wondered if it was Monica calling to tell me she'd found something. Every time he came home late, I imagined him in hotel rooms with Claire, spending our money on their affair. But David seemed oblivious. He was actually more attentive than usual, suggesting we watch movies together, making elaborate dinners, talking about the vacation we were supposedly planning. It felt like the calm before a storm. On day 8 of the surveillance, Monica called. I've found some things, she said. Can you meet today? My heart sank. Is it bad? Just come to the office. We'll go through everything together. I told David I was meeting a friend for lunch and drove to Monica's office with shaking hands. She had a folder waiting for me, thick with documents and photographs. Let's start with the financials, she said, spreading papers across her desk. Your husband has 3 bank accounts that you don't know about. 3 accounts. 2 are with regional banks, 1 is offshore. The total balance across all 3 accounts is approximately $250,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. $250,000? The money comes from various sources. Some appears to be salary that he's routing to these accounts instead of to your joint account. Some are transfers from his business account, possibly skimming off client payments. And some, she pulled out another document. Some appears to be investment returns from stocks and bonds purchased 2 years ago. 2 years ago, before any of this started. He's been planning this for years, I said numbly. It appears so. What else? Monica pulled out a series of photographs. They showed David entering and leaving various locations. An apartment building I didn't recognize. Upscale restaurants. A bank. This apartment building, Monica said, pointing to one photo. He visits every Thursday afternoon, stays for approximately 2 hours, then leaves. Thursday afternoons, when he supposedly had client meetings. Do you know who lives there? Unit 412 is registered to a limited liability company called Meridian Holdings. The registered agent is a lawyer downtown. I'm still working on finding out who actually owns it, but shell companies are often used to hide asset ownership. What about Claire? Did you see him with Claire? Monica hesitated, then pulled out another set of photos. My sister, entering the same apartment building on Thursday afternoon, 3 hours before David, leaving 4 hours later. They don't arrive or leave together, Monica noted, which suggests they're trying to avoid being seen as a couple, but they're both definitely spending time in that apartment on the same day each week. I felt tears building but refused to let them fall. Is there anything else? Yes. Monica pulled out bank records. These are the accounts for Meridian Holdings. Regular deposits of $4,000 per month, dating back 8 months. The deposits come from one of your husband's hidden accounts. $4,000 per month, $32,000 over 8 months. David wasn't just having an affair. He was keeping my sister in an apartment, paying her rent with money he'd hidden from me. "I'm sorry," Monica said quietly. "I know this isn't what you wanted to find." "It's exactly what I suspected," I said. "I just didn't want to believe it." "What do you want to do now?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did I do with this information? I thought about confronting David, demanding an explanation, but I remembered his reaction to my questions about the money, the deflection, the gaslighting, the way he'd made me feel crazy for asking. If I confronted him now, he'd have answers. He'd have explanations that sounded reasonable. He'd make me doubt the evidence I was seeing with my own eyes. No, if I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. "I need more," I told Monica. "I need proof that's undeniable. Recordings, witnesses, something he can't explain away." She nodded slowly. "That's going to take time. And more money. I don't care. I want everything documented. Every lie, every secret, every dollar. I want it all." "Okay," Monica said. "Then that's what we'll do." Back chapter 8. The performance. The hardest part was going home and acting normal. I sat in my car outside our house for 10 minutes before going in, practicing my smile in the rearview mirror, rehearsing normal conversation topics, the weather, work, what to have for dinner, anything but what I really wanted to say. "I know you're lying to me. I know you're hiding something. I know you're destroying our marriage." When I finally walked in, David was in the kitchen making dinner, pasta with his signature vodka sauce that he was so proud of. The smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the house, normally comforting, now making my stomach turn. "Hey, babe," he called out cheerfully. "Perfect timing. Dinner's almost ready." I walked into our house with a smile on my face, the same smile I'd practiced in the car. I greeted David with a kiss, though the touch of his lips made my skin crawl. I asked about his day, and he told me about some difficult client who kept changing their mind about design elements. "How was lunch with your friend?" he asked, stirring the sauce. "Good. We went to that new place downtown." The lie came easily. After all, I'd learned from the best. Which friend was this again? For a moment I panicked, realized I hadn't thought through the details of my fictional lunch. "Rachel," I said, naming a woman from my book club. "She's thinking about remodeling her kitchen and wanted to pick my brain about it." "You're not a designer," David said with a laugh. "No, but I'm married to one. I've absorbed some knowledge by osmosis." He grinned and turned back to his cooking. "Well, if Rachel needs actual professional advice, tell her I'm happy to consult." We ate dinner at the kitchen table, and I asked follow-up questions about his difficult client. David was animated, using his hands to describe the architectural challenges, complaining about people who didn't understand design principles. I nodded and made appropriate responses, all the while thinking about Monica following him, photographing him, documenting his lies. After dinner, we watched a movie, David's choice, some action thriller I'd normally enjoy, but I couldn't focus. I kept watching him from the corner of my eye, studying this man I'd thought I knew, looking for signs of deception, cracks in his mask. He caught me staring. "What?" "Nothing. Just, do you love me?" The question came out before I could stop it. David paused the movie and turned to face me, his expression softening. "Of course I love you. Why would you even ask that?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we're just going through the motions. Like we're roommates who have sex occasionally, not a married couple." He was quiet for a moment. Then he took my hand. "Sarah, I know work has been consuming me lately, and I know I haven't been as present as I should be, but I do love you. You're my partner, my best friend. You're everything to me." The words sounded sincere. If I hadn't known what I knew, I would have believed him completely. Maybe I would have even cried with relief. Instead, I squeezed his hand and smiled. "I love you too." He pulled me close, and we finished the movie curled up together on the couch. His arm around my shoulders felt like a trap instead of comfort. That night, lying in bed beside him, I listened to his breathing even out into sleep, and I thought about Monica's words. The gut knows before the brain catches up. My gut had been screaming at me for weeks. I'd just been too afraid to listen. Over the next few weeks, I became an actress in my own life. I played the role of devoted wife while Monica continued her investigation. I smiled and laughed and made love to my husband, all while knowing that every moment might be built on lies. The performance took its toll. I started having nightmares, dreams where I walked in on David and Claire together, where I confronted them and they laughed in my face, where I tried to scream but no sound came out. I'd wake up gasping, and David would pull me close, murmuring comfort, and I'd have to resist the urge to push him away. I lost weight, couldn't eat, my stomach constantly churning with anxiety. David noticed and expressed concern, suggested I see a doctor. "You're looking thin," he said one morning, watching me push my breakfast around my plate. "Are you feeling okay?" "Just stressed about work," I lied. "Big project deadline coming up. Want me to give you a massage tonight? Help you relax?" His thoughtfulness felt like mockery, or maybe it was genuine, and he'd compartmentalized his betrayal so thoroughly that he could still care about me while simultaneously destroying our marriage. I didn't know which possibility was worse. She obtained copies of the lease for the apartment, signed by David under his business name, with Claire listed as the sole occupant. She photographed them together at restaurants, always careful to sit where they couldn't see the exits, always touching in ways that suggested more than a familial relationship. She documented every dollar flowing from David's hidden accounts to various expenses: the apartment, dinners, jewelry purchases from Tiffany's. And then, 3 weeks into the investigation, we got the recordings. Monica had managed to place a listening device in the apartment, legally questionable, but she'd used a technicality involving the property being a business asset to get authorization. The first recording was devastating. "I can't keep lying to her," Claire's voice, distorted slightly by the recording equipment. "Sarah's my sister. This is killing me." "I know, baby. I know." David's voice, tender in a way he never was with me anymore. "But we just need a little more time. Once I have everything moved into the offshore accounts, we can tell her." "Tell her what? That we've been fucking for a year? That you've been embezzling from your own wife to keep me in this apartment?" "We're not going to phrase it like that." Claire laughed, bitter. "How exactly do you plan to phrase, 'I'm leaving you for your sister'?" My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone Monica was playing the recording on. "There's more," Monica said gently. She played another recording from 2 days later. "Marcus is getting suspicious," Claire said. "He asked about the deposit in my account last month, the $4,000. What did you tell him?" "That it was a bonus from work. But David, we need to be more careful. If he finds out, if Sarah finds out, they won't find out. Not until we're ready." "And when will we be ready?" "Soon. I'm almost done liquidating the last of the joint assets. Another few months and we'll have close to $500,000 in clean money that she can't touch." $500,000? Money he was stealing from our marriage to fund his future with my sister. "I think I'm going to be sick," I said. Monica handed me a trash can, and I dry heaved into it, my body rejecting the reality of what I was hearing. "I'm sorry," Monica said, "but you needed to hear it. You needed to know." She was right. I did need to know. Because now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. Not just an affair, but a systematic plan to rob me blind and leave me with nothing while running away with my sister. "What do I do?" I asked when I could finally speak again. "That depends. Do you want to save your marriage?" "No," I said immediately. "I want to destroy him." Monica's expression was approving. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." The Bröstardier, Chapter 9, Building the Case. I hired a lawyer the next day, a bulldog of a woman named Catherine Pierce, who specialized in high-asset divorces and financial fraud cases. Her office was in a sleek downtown high-rise, all glass and steel and expensive modern art. Catherine herself was in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a designer suit, with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that missed nothing. "Tell me why you're here," she said, gesturing for me to sit in one of the leather chairs across from her desk. I told her everything, the entire story, from the Panties to the present moment. She listened without interruption, her expression neutral, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. "The recordings alone would be enough for a divorce. But what you're describing, the systematic hiding of assets, the transfers to accounts you don't know about, the forged signatures on retirement account withdrawals, this could be criminal fraud." "Criminal?" "He forged your signature to access your retirement accounts." That's identity theft and financial fraud. He set up shell companies to hide marital assets. That's fraudulent conveyance. And if he's been billing his firm for hours he spent with your sister, that's embezzlement from his employer. She leaned forward. Sarah, your husband isn't just a cheater. He's a criminal. The words hung in the air between us. Catherine listened to the recordings, reviewed Monica's evidence, and spread out the financial documents with the air of a general surveying a battlefield. She made notes, cross-referenced dates, built timelines. This is good, she said finally. Really good. Your husband has been remarkably stupid in his documentation. He's kept records of everything, probably thinking he'd need them for tax purposes later, but these records are going to bury him. What's my first step? Freeze everything. I'll file emergency motions today to freeze all joint accounts, prevent him from accessing any shared assets, and secure a restraining order preventing him from moving or hiding any money. We'll also request a forensic accountant to go through every transaction from the past 3 years. Won't that tip him off? Yes, which is why we're going to do something else first. Catherine smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator spotting wounded prey. We're going to empty every account he thinks you don't know about. We can do that? Technically, the money he earned during your marriage is marital property, even if he hid it in accounts with only his name on them. With the evidence Monica gathered showing he was deliberately hiding assets with intent to defraud you, I can make a strong case for emergency access to protect marital assets from dissipation. It's aggressive, but judges don't like it when one spouse tries to hide money from the other. She made some calls, speaking in legal jargon I only half understood. Within hours, we had emergency court orders allowing me to access David's hidden accounts pending a full hearing. I sat in Catherine's office and watched her transfer $250,000 from David's secret accounts into a secured trust account that he couldn't touch. Each transfer felt surreal, watching hundreds of thousands of dollars move with just a few clicks, money that David had stolen from our marriage now being reclaimed. This is just the beginning, Catherine said as the final transfer completed. We're also going to go after Meridian Holdings, the company he set up to hide the apartment. Since he used marital funds to create and fund it, you're entitled to half. We'll force the sale of the apartment and your sister will have to find somewhere else to live. What about Claire? Catherine's expression hardened. Your sister is a complication. She's not party to your marriage, so we can't go after her directly in the divorce. But if she knew David was married when the affair started, and if she benefited financially from marital assets, we might be able to pursue a civil suit for alienation of affection in addition to the divorce proceedings. Will that work? Maybe. It depends on the judge, the jurisdiction, the specifics of the case, but it'll definitely send a message. I thought about Claire, my sister, who I'd loved and protected my whole life, who I'd trusted completely. Do it, I said. Go after both of them. While Catherine handled the legal strategy, Monica continued surveillance. I want to know everything, I told her. Every meeting, every dinner, every moment they spend together. I want a complete record, she delivered. Over the next 2 weeks, she documented 12 separate meetings between David and Claire, dinners at expensive restaurants, afternoon trysts at the apartment, a weekend getaway to wine country that David had told me was a business trip. Each piece of evidence felt like another knife in my back, but I collected them all, building my case, preparing for the moment when I would finally confront them both. That moment came sooner than expected. I was in Catherine's office reviewing documents when my phone rang. It was my mother. Sarah, I need you to come to the house right away. What's wrong? Just come, please. I drove to my parents' house with a sense of dread. When I arrived, I found my mother in tears, my father pacing the living room, and Claire sitting on the couch looking defiant. What's going on? I asked. My father stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression of pure fury. Tell your sister what you told us, Claire. Claire met my eyes and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. I'm pregnant, she said quietly, and the baby is David's. The room tilted. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. You're what? I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. And before you ask, yes, I'm sure it's his. Marcus and I haven't been intimate in months. He doesn't know. Nobody knows except David, and now you all. My mother was crying harder now. My father looked like he wanted to hit something. I felt nothing. just a strange, empty coldness. How long? I asked. How long have you been sleeping with my husband? 14 months. Over a year. The Panties had been from 3 weeks ago, but the affair had been going on for over a year before that. And you're keeping the baby? I don't know yet. David wants me to, but She trailed off, seeming to realize how insane it sounded. I don't know what I want. What about Marcus? My mother asked through her tears. You're engaged to Marcus. I'm going to break it off, Claire said. I can't marry him when I'm in love with someone else. Someone else being my husband, I said flatly. I'm sorry, Sarah. I never meant for this to happen. It just did. I laughed, a harsh sound that made everyone flinch. It just happened? For 14 months? You just accidentally fell into bed with my husband over and over again? You just accidentally let him buy you an apartment and spend hundreds of thousands of our dollars on you. Claire's eyes widened. How did you— I know everything, Claire. I've known for weeks. The affair, the money, the apartment, all of it. I've been documenting it all, building a case. A case? My father asked. I'm divorcing David, and I'm suing both of them for everything they took from me. Claire stood up. Sarah, please let me explain. Explain what? That you destroyed my marriage? That you betrayed me in the worst possible way? That you're pregnant with my husband's child while engaged to another man? I shook my head. There's nothing to explain, Claire. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. I turned to leave, but my mother called after me. Sarah, wait. She's still your sister. I looked back at Claire, who was crying now, mascara running down her face. No, I said clearly. She's not. Not anymore. I walked out of my parents' house and drove straight to Catherine's office. We're done waiting, I told her. I want to file everything today. Divorce, restraining order, asset freeze, all of it. And I want David served at his office in front of his colleagues. Catherine nodded. Consider it done. Darn. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. David was served with divorce papers on a Thursday afternoon. Appropriately, given that Thursdays were when he usually visited Claire. I wasn't there to see it, but Monica was. She sent me a photo. David standing in his office lobby, papers in hand, his face pale with shock. He called my phone 17 times in the next hour. I didn't answer. He showed up at our house. My house now, according to the restraining order, but the police turned him away. He sent texts, ranging from confused to angry to pleading, What the hell is this, Sarah? We need to talk. This is insane. Please, just call me, let me explain. You can't do this. Those accounts are mine. Sarah, please. I love you. I deleted each one without responding. The next day, Catherine filed a motion to freeze all of David's assets, including his business accounts. She also filed a motion to depose him and Claire under oath about their affair and the financial transactions. The paperwork made local news. Architect accused of embezzling from wife to fund affair with her sister, read one headline. David's firm put him on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Turns out, using client meetings as cover for an affair while billing those hours to the firm was considered professional misconduct. Who knew? Claire called me crying. I answered this time. I wanted to hear what she had to say. Sarah, please, you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything. He told me you two were having problems, that the marriage was over in everything but name, that you were just staying together out of convenience. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. I know that's not an excuse, but I fell in love with him, Sarah. I know it's wrong. I know I'm a terrible person, but I love him. Then I hope you'll be very happy together, with no money, living in whatever cheap apartment you can afford after David loses his job and his reputation and half of everything he owns. You're destroying his life. No, Claire. He destroyed his own life, and yours, and mine. I'm just making sure everyone sees it clearly. What about the baby? I'd been trying not to think about the baby. My sister, pregnant with my husband's child. The family gatherings to come. The child who would be both my niece or nephew and my ex-husband's son or daughter. That's your problem, I said. Not mine. I hung up and blocked her number. Over the next few weeks, the full scope of David's deception came to light. The offshore accounts contained another $100,000 that Monica hadn't initially found. David had taken out loans against our house without my knowledge. borrowing against the equity to fund his lifestyle with Claire. He'd liquidated my retirement accounts, forging my signature to do so, and moved the money into his hidden accounts. In total, he'd stolen or hidden nearly $600,000 of marital assets. Catherine was merciless in court. She presented every recording, every photograph, every financial document. She put Monica on the stand to detail the surveillance. She showed the judge the timeline of the affair, the money transfers, the lies. David's lawyer tried to argue that the surveillance was illegal, that the recordings couldn't be admitted, that David had a right to financial privacy even in marriage. The judge shut it down. "Mr. Taylor," she said, looking at David with obvious disdain, "you systematically defrauded your wife, conducted an affair with her sister, and attempted to hide hundreds of thousands of dollars in marital assets. I have zero sympathy for your claims of privacy rights." Oh, she ruled in my favor on every motion, froze all of David's assets, ordered him to pay my legal fees, granted me exclusive possession of our house and car. But the most satisfying moment came when Catherine revealed the evidence of David's embezzlement from his own clients. Turns out, some of those business expenses had been funded not just with our money, but with money he'd skimmed from client accounts. He'd been inflating project costs and pocketing the difference. "Your Honor," Catherine said, "I believe this rises to the level of criminal fraud. I'm formally requesting that the court refer this matter to the district attorney's office." David's face went gray. The judge agreed. "I'm ordering a criminal investigation into Mr. Taylor's business practices. Bailiff, Mr. Taylor is to surrender his passport immediately and is not to leave the jurisdiction pending the outcome of that investigation." David was arrested 3 days later on fraud charges. I watched the news footage of him being led out of his office in handcuffs, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a hollow exhaustion. Chapter 11. Aftermath. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got the house, the car, all remaining marital assets, and half of everything David owned, including half the value of his business, which forced him to either buy me out or sell. He sold. I got another $200,000. Claire's engagement to Marcus fell apart when the affair became public. Marcus, understandably, wanted nothing to do with her. She had the baby, a girl. She named her Emma, which I found almost as offensive as everything else she'd done. My mother calls sometimes, trying to broker reconciliation. "She's still your sister," she says. "That baby is still your niece." But I can't. Every time I think about forgiving Claire, I remember the recordings, the way she'd laughed about lying to me, the way she'd let David buy her things with my money. My father understands. He cut off Claire too, unable to forgive her betrayal of me. My parents' marriage is strained now, caught between their 2 daughters. I feel guilty about that sometimes, but not guilty enough to make peace with Claire. David served 2 years in minimum security prison for the fraud charges. He lost his license to practice architecture. Last I heard, he was working construction in another state, trying to rebuild his life. He and Claire aren't together anymore. Turns out their grand romance couldn't survive losing everything. I sold the house. Too many memories. I bought a condo downtown, started fresh. I also changed jobs, moved to a new company where nobody knew about the scandal, started dating again, though I'm in no hurry to remarry. Trust doesn't come easily anymore, but I survived. That's what matters. The panties had been small, a tiny piece of fabric that could have been easily explained away, and for a while I'd let myself believe the explanations. But the money told the truth. $300,000 in hidden accounts, $32,000 in apartment rent, thousands in jewelry and dinners and weekend trips, $600,000 in total marital assets stolen or hidden. The money didn't lie. Money never lies. Numbers don't gaslight you. Bank statements don't make excuses. Financial records don't tell you you're being paranoid. That's what I learned. Trust your gut, but verify with the evidence. Because in the end, it wasn't the panties that exposed my husband and sister's betrayal. It was the money. And while they'd been counting on me to focus on the small things, the easy-to-explain mistakes, the innocent coincidences, I'd been following the money trail they thought I'd never find. They played innocent. They explained away every question. They made me feel crazy for suspecting, but the numbers told a different story, and numbers don't lie. Epilogue. 2 years later, I'm sitting in a cafe near my new condo when I see her, Claire, pushing a stroller with a toddler inside. She looks tired, older than her years. The expensive clothes are gone, replaced with Target basics. Her hair needs a cut. She sees me at the same moment. Our eyes meet across the cafe. For a moment, I think she's going to come over. But then she looks away and quickly leaves, pushing the stroller faster than necessary. I should feel something. Satisfaction, maybe, at seeing her brought low. Or sadness for what we've lost. Or anger that still burns hot. But I just feel tired. My phone buzzes with a text from my friend Rachel, asking if I want to grab dinner tonight. Rachel, who I met at my new job, who knows nothing about David or Claire or any of it. I text back, yes, definitely, because this is my life now. New friends who don't know my history. A job I'm good at. A small condo that's all mine. Savings accounts that only I can access. A future that belongs to me alone. It's not the life I planned. It's not the family I wanted. But it's mine. Built on truth instead of lies. Secured with evidence instead of faith. The panties were small, insignificant, easily explained. But the money? The money was everything. And I followed it all the way to freedom. The end. Author's note. Financial abuse is real and often invisible. If you're in a relationship where your partner controls all the money, you don't have access to financial information, your partner makes large purchases or withdrawals without discussion, you feel like you have to justify every expense. Money is used as punishment or reward. You're being isolated from financial independence. You may be experiencing financial abuse. It's a form of domestic violence, and it's never okay. Resources are available. Reach out to National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233. Financial counselors who specialize in abuse situations. Legal aid organizations that can help you understand your rights. Trust your instincts. Document everything. And remember, you deserve financial transparency and autonomy in your relationships. The money always tells the truth. You just have to be brave enough to look for it.